Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This time we see Vincent lead the Wood Elves in battle against Adnan 42's Beastmen. I suggest you get some snacks, this is quite an intense fight. We begin as always with talk of composition and deployment, and as you can see both sides are very aggressive in this one, so we're going to do it paused. With the Wood Elves here, we have a Glade Lord in charge atop her Forest Dragon, and the main army consists of the Spellslinger of Life, able to bring in that magical support, keep these guys alive, use regrowth for physical resistance as well, etc. And the front line has these 2 units of Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts. Of course, not the actual front line, but their fiery damage is going to do a lot of work in a matchup like this, especially against enemy units that have regeneration, because that gives them a weakness to fire. For example, Morgr the Shadowgave. Then back here, the true front line consists of these 4 units of Eternal Guard, ranked up to double gold. Great call, lots of melee stat boosts, leadership boosts to help fight against the fear of Minotaurs, etc. But they don't have shields, and I think that's crucial in a matchup against the Beastmen. Then back here, we've got the War Dancers with Aserai Spear, Armor Piercing, and Anti-Large, so they'll do some fair work. And the Tree Man back here, also ranked up pretty high, able to take care of lowly infantry, do a lot of damage, and bring in that fear and terror as well. Great call. Then, up front over here, you'll see Vanguard deployed 2 units of Glade Riders with Hagbane Tips, hoping to probably creep forward, get some early damage in, poke and prod, use their poison to stay safe. But as you can see, the Beastmen are pretty aggressive as well. So let's start looking at their army. As you can see, in charge, we do have Morgr the Shadowgave. So those Starfire Shafts are going to be pretty helpful here. We also have a Brave Shaman of Death and a Gorbel. So between melee and magic, there's a lot of hurt in the command structure here. Then we've got 2 units of Ungor Spearmen hurt. They're anti-large. They'll do well enough. And we have off to the side over here, the Minotaurs with great weapons, anti-large, and armor piercing, a very threatening unit. And then to the side over here, we've got another 2 units of Minotaurs, regular ones this time, helpful against infantry, they're armor piercing, and they can do a lot of damage and cause fear as well. And up front over here, as you've been seeing, Vanguard deployed 4 units of Ungor Raiders, already able to fire away as the enemy has deployed extremely close. And then we've got the real Vanguard force in melee, the Gore Herd, the Ungor Herd, and 2 units of Gore Herds with shield. Now, these unshielded units are going to have a rough time against Wood Elves, who will likely bring some ranged, but the shielded units will fare a little bit better. But with all that said and done, let's take a look at how this all breaks down. Right away, of course, as you can see, those ranged units are about to open fire. The Ungor Raiders get those first shots off. They get the first order to fire, and you'll see right away the Glade Riders, rather than opening shots, decide, wisely so, to fall back. There's a great volume of range fire about to come towards them, so they know what's good for them. They're pulling back, and take a look at how much work this does. These guys falling apart right away, already basically giving up on the fight, health dropping below half there, so great first volley from the Ungor Raiders, and even though they responded, they barely got any work done in response. And you'll see we do have Earthblood going in nice and early to try and keep these guys alive, otherwise that is a waste of points. Need to keep them on the field for as long as possible, as they will be very helpful. And you can see the rest of the army is creeping forward, so these Glade Guard over here opening shots, getting a little bit of damage in here and there, but unfortunately the shields are working against them. The Glade Lord, meanwhile, pushing off to the side, trying to get some damage into the Minotaurs with great weapons from up in the air, unfortunately hit by Spirit Leech, so taking a touch of damage, but at least able to take care of those Minotaurs, try and wipe them off the field nice and early. And you'll see we've got these Glade Riders moving off to the side as well, hoping to do the same, hoping to get some damage in there before they're able to dive into melee against any of these large units. And now the rest of the horde is pulling out from these trees, and so we've got these archers pulling back into safety, of course, and then turning around to return fire as soon as they get behind the Eternal Guard. And you'll see over here, we have the Minotaurs taking a fair bit of damage. Those Hagbane Tips are dropping in. We've got some Dragon's Breath being used as well, but unfortunately they were able to dodge it, so it doesn't do too much. But the Glade Lord is up there, firing away from range, of course, using the Arrow of Kronos as well to get a little bit of a hurt into these main forces over here, doing a touch of damage against the Gore Herd with shields, but there may have been a better place to use that Arrow of Kronos. For example, these Minotaurs, perhaps, maybe the Ungor Spearmen over here, get rid of some of that anti-large, because that's very threatening for the Glade Lord. You'll see, meanwhile, as the enemy forces creep forward, the Wood Elves are responding. They're spreading their lines out a little bit wider. We've got this unit of Eternal Guard pushing off to the side, trying to take care of these Ungor Raiders, trying to engage these guys as quickly as possible. And now you'll see the Glade Guard firing away at these unshielded Ungor Herd and Gore Herd. So that's a good call, but this other unit still firing at the Gore Herd with shields here. So better management there could have made a huge difference. And off to the side over here, you'll see the Glade Riders in a bit of a threatening situation, as the Minotaurs with great weapons and the Gorbel are closing the gap, but they're very well managed managed here, very deftly managed. They're able to dodge, they pull back into safety, split off as well, so the Minotaurs aren't able to just take care of both of them in one swoop. And meanwhile, you'll see the Glade Lord as well hit by Spirit Leech once more and pulling back to provide some assistance. And over here we have these Eternal Guard courageously diving into the Gorbel here, but the Gorbel does not give a damn, rolls right through them, causing a great deal of, well, it looks like it hurts, but it doesn't actually. The Eternal Guard are doing all right. They're not too terribly hurt, and they're poking and prodding away at the Gorbel. The Glade Lord as well pulls back to provide some assistance, and the front line you'll see over here is starting to engage. We've got the Tree Man diving in here into the center. Morga the Shadowglaive is engaged, and the 2 units of Gorehorde with shield are diving in as well, but you'll see off to the side over here, this unit of Eternal Guard has already fallen apart under all of that range support. They were able to single out a single unit of Ungor Raiders, but these guys were split apart, spread apart, and are now able to fire into the Eternal Guard, and they're falling apart. So we have this other unit of Eternal Guard pushing in to engage these 2 units, but unfortunately, by the time they get there, these guys are already taken care of, so now these 2 units of Ungor Raiders are free to fire as well. The front lines have engaged as well. You'll see these War Dancers with the Aserai Spear and the Eternal Guard keeping the Gore Herd over here engaged, as well as the Ungor Herd, and the Glade Lord just looking for an opportunity to dive in, while back here the Gorbel, as you can see, already wiped out, though the Stave of Ruinous Corruption brings a unit of Chaos Spawn to bear, coming in from the rear of the Eternal Guard. So they're going to have a bit of a tough time here, but very quickly they'll be able to overcome the Chaos Spawn, of course. And you'll see over here we've got the Glade Riders with Hagbane tips firing away, providing support here, while back here the Minotaurs with great weapons have been taken care of as well. Over here, meanwhile, you'll see we have the Prey of Anathema going down on these Minotaurs, making sure they're not able to dive in with full force into the Eternal Guard. Great timing there, great call. You can see they stopped just short, and the Eternal Guard, though, are completely surrounded by range support. They're pinned in place by Goreherd with shields. We've got the Minotaurs just waiting to dive in, and that range support is coming in as well. So these Eternal Guard are very quickly going to give up on the fight as well, just like their brethren did moments ago. Over here, though, you'll see again the Glade Lord hit by Spirit Leech, so great use of magic there from the Bray Shaman of Death. And in the center, though, the Goreherd and the Ungoreherd have given up very low in morale, so they've given up very quickly, and the Tree Man having a field day here, taking care of these Goreherd with shields in the center. But the Glade Lord dives into Morga the Shadowglaive, trying to get some hurt done, as Morga was hitting the Spellsinger of Life, preventing that magical support. So great call there, trying to keep Morga occupied, and these Glade Guard as well going to pull back and open fire at Morga as soon as possible. On the right here, you'll see the Eternal Guard, they're completely falling apart, and the Hagbane tips now once again being used, this time against the Chaos Spawn. So very well done there, pulling these guys back in to provide support, and right away the Ungor Spearman Herd push in response to force these Glade Riders back. So great micromanagement there, great job keeping units in reserve and only sending them in when necessary. I love seeing that kind of behavior. And in the center here, though, you'll see these Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts finally deciding to pull away. They need to fire into Morga to get their fire damage in there. And over here we have Dwellers below coming in to try and provide some support against these Ungor Raiders, but unfortunately, while it does some damage, it is far too late to help those Eternal Guard there survive. Meanwhile, the War Dancers with the Aserai Spear are going to have a great time against these Minotaurs. Of course, the charge kind of did a bit of hurt, but with support from the Eternal Guard, they're going to just overpower those Minotaurs, and we have that range support coming in as well. These Spearmen over here still giving chase to these Glade Guard. Great call there. And again, these guys were split apart to make sure they're not both shut down by one anti-large unit, and again providing support to the Chaos Spawn. The Ungor Raiders, though, doing a lot of work over here, firing away. All 4 of those units still very much alive, and in the center once more Spirit Leech hitting the Glade Lord, just doing a great deal of damage. Morga the Shadowglaive coming out on top over here as well, still very much above half health, just a quarter health lost, I would say. The Glade Lord using physical resistance and hit point replenishment from regrowth, trying to stay alive here, and there comes all that range support once more, firing into Morga the Shadowglaive, just trying to burn him and take advantage of that weakness to fire. Though you'll see over here, we've got the Eternal Guard in a bit of a tough spot. The War Dancers with the Aserai Spear being kept busy by the Goreherd here, so they're not able to help against the Minotaurs. Great call there, and all that range support coming in as well, scaring these guys off. The Glade Lord, though, takes to the air, and I have to wonder if that was the best call here. She was doing all right against Morga the Shadowglaive, but there are more important things for her to be doing. I would say she should have done it a lot sooner, but let's take a look at how she moves. So first thing she does is pop some breath into the back of these Goreherd with shields. Great call. Look at their health and will to fight drop. Wonderfully done. Meanwhile, as these Minotaurs with great weapons are coming in from back here, you'll see the Prey of Anathema goes down on the Ungor Raiders. Maybe it would have been better used back here, but I don't think she saw it happening. Then she decides to pull in and move towards these Ungor Raiders, and rather than fire from range, she dives right in. Needs to get involved, needs to prevent that fire from coming in, but unfortunately not able to engage all of these guys at the same time. And I would even argue the Beastmen should have kept these guys further apart just to make sure a situation like this would not happen. Off in the distance, meanwhile, you'll see we've got those Glade Riders Riders still busy. One unit taking care of these Ungor herd over here, and the other unit taking care of the Ungor Spearman herd. So they haven't been forgotten, but they're doing pretty well, so we don't really have to focus in on them. In the center, though, the Tree Man now being taken care of. We've got the Minotaurs in there, we've got the Ungor Spearman herd as well, so not the best spot for the Tree Man, unfortunately, but that's the most he can do. Maybe would have been a better call to send him into some of these Ungor Raiders as well, just to shut that range support down for, well, once and for all. But let's take a look at what happens here. As you can see, one unit does get hit by Terror, so trying to leave the field, but the rest of these guys are able to fire away, while back here, these Minotaurs with great weapons, preoccupied with one unit of Glade Guard with Starfire Shaft, sort of used as bait there, and in response, the other unit firing away, getting these guys to give up, wavering, and there you have it, they are broken. The Spellslinger of Life as well, though broken, pulling back as she routs, and Morgar the Shadowglaive involved once again in the front lines, diving into the War Dancers with Aserai Spear. The Tree Man finally getting some support in the form of the Eternal Guard over here, poking and prodding at the Minotaur, so that's a great call there, needing that support, but the Minotaurs are, again, they're going to have a good time banging on some of these infantry units. They're not going to come out on top in a prolonged engagement, but of course, given the weakened Eternal Guard, the Minotaurs aren't in the worst potential spot. We also have Earthblood going down, trying to keep these guys alive, especially helpful for the Tree Man because it's a solo unit. And off to the side over here, you'll see the Glade Lord again in a very rough spot. We have that unit of Minotaurs beating away at the Glade Lord and the Forest Dragon. We've got all those range units able to fire away. At least one's able to fire, the other's able to fire, and that reduces morale. So you'll see we have a retreat going on over here, while over here we had one of the units converted into Chaos Spawn. So the Spirit Essence of Chaos used against one of the Eternal Guard with shield units to then be used against the War Dancer with the Aserai Spear, and now ultimately against this central clump over here. But back to that Glade Lord, you'll see running away from these Minotaurs, needing to move very quickly here because those Ungor Raiders will look to open fire as quickly as possible, but fortunately just able to get out of range as quickly as possible, able to get out of range in time, rather. Over here, though, we have the Glade Riders now out of their Hagbane tips without any ranged capabilities. They're going to push into melee, and that is a great call. These Ungor Raiders are still clumped up. In comes an Arrow of Kronos. Unfortunately, it does nothing, just scuffs the terrain, but these charges come in, and they're going to do a lot of work here. Maybe they won't kill that many units, but they will keep these guys busy, and it'll reduce their morale as well. And you'll see a little bit of micromanagement here. Unfortunately, the Glade Guard, or the Glade Riders, sorry, decide to stay engaged, so they have to be ordered a second time to push off to the side and get a rear charge. And over here, the Glade Lord once again hit by Spirit Leech. Great use of magic, and the Bray Shaman of Death just not being targeted, not able to be targeted because there's just so many Beastmen units on the field. So the Glade Lord in a very precarious situation here, health dropping extremely low, trying to get away from that magical range of the Bray Shaman. And you'll see at the same time we have the Spellsinger joining in again on the fight, and these archers as well. These Glade Guard completely out of ammunition now, beating on some of these Gore Herd with shields, outnumbering them, and so coming out on top. And off to the side here, though, you'll see we have to have these Glade Riders pull back, and that range support now providing so much support. That one unit ready to rout already, the other unit very close to routing as well. So again, it turns around in favor of the Beastmen, and the Glade Lord again very low on health, needs to find a safe space, needs to wait until either Regrowth or Earthblood is available once again, but already made to rout. So a terrible spot for the Wood Elves in the center here as well. The Tree Man able to stick around for a very long time, has killed 105 individuals, but fully surrounded now is the focus of some attention, and you'll see these Ungor Raiders as well, looking for an opportunity, I think, to open fire into the Tree Man. And back here, though, we do have the Glade Riders ready to charge in once more, so immediately order to charge back in, and these Ungor Raiders turn around, open fire at the Tree Man. Would have been much better firing off at some of these Glade Riders over here because they are freely able to come in with a nice rear charge once again. And take a look at this, tossing that one unit aside, but they are so densely packed that when that second charge comes in and gets a nice rear charge into these Ungor Raiders, they're not able to push all the way through, unfortunately. So the dense the way they're packed so densely has kind of worked out for them. Not so much for the units at the back, though. And back here, though, you'll see the Glade Lord once again willing to fight, wavering, though she has returned, she's not so sure about sticking around. And over here as well, the Glade Guard just kind of doing nothing, looking for an opportunity to dive in, looking for a place to dive into, ultimately deciding to help the Tree Man over here because the Glade Riders seem to be alright. They seem to be doing okay against the Ungor Raiders over here, but you'll see right away these guys have to pull back once more, and that gives another opportunity for these guys to open fire. And I'm not sure why they decided to pull back. I mean, it may have been better to just keep these guys occupied. A very quick return, though, so better call this time, not pulling as far back away, coming right back in, getting another charge, tossing some more of these guys around, and again getting that morale damage in there and causing some more routes. Back here, though, you'll see the Glade Lord still wavering, the Spellsinger, I think, still waiting for either Regrowth or Earthblood to become available. And up front over here, you'll see the Tree Man in a very precarious situation. Everyone's engaged against Morgar the Shadowglaive and the Bray Shaman of Death off in the distance as well. We have some of these Ungor Spearmen herd returning to the fight. but off in the distance even further, these guys are all shattered, and those Minotaurs are probably not coming back. Arrow of Kronos comes in once again to provide some assistance. Unfortunately, once more, it is a scuffed shot, and back here you'll see we do have both of these Glade Riders completely giving up on the fight, and all of that range support again free to fire. But they did a fair bit of work there, scaring off 2 Ungor Raider units, one willing to fight once more, though the other still routing. Off in the distance, you'll see Regrowth does go down on the Glade Lord, keeping her alive, but unfortunately she does break basically immediately afterwards. So hopefully she'll come back and provide some assistance to the Wood Elves, but they are very low on morale right now. You'll see a couple of breaks going down over here. These guys are routing, so we have 2 non-melee units engaged against Morga the Shadowgave, the Ungor Spearman Herd, and the Brave Shaman of Death. Not an ideal situation. Another one of those guys does decide to rout, and they all decide to rout under that ranged support as well. Off in the distance, though, you'll see we do have this unit of Glade Riders coming back in, and we have the Eternal Guard here as well, looking for an opportunity, looking for an angle to come in from, while in the middle here, you see the Tree Man has pulled back a while ago since he was very low on health, wanted to get away from all of that range support. So great call there. Stay safe, stay in the trees, or stay behind the trees even, but the Glade Lord once again willing to fight at regenerative cap, though, so it needs to be very carefully used here, but at least she's willing to fight again, and you'll see some great micromanagement over here, just dodging all of that range support as it comes in, moving off to the side, using the trees, using her movement, just shaking back and forth, and as that's happening, off in the distance here, you'll see we have the Glade Riders coming back in for another charge, and you'll see they're not really willing to stick around already, but they get a nice rear charge in there, doing a fair bit of damage, getting a rout in there, and then in comes the Glade Lord as well. Wonderful timing. These guys dive in at the same time. Fear, terror, rear charges, morale damage is all happening here. This is the last hurrah for the Wood Elves, and you'll see Morga the Shadowgave, the Brave Shaman, and these Gore Herd here as well dive in to try and take care of the Glade Lord as quickly as possible, but in comes the Tree Man as well. He wants to get involved. He wants a vengeance for the amount of bark that's been taken off of him, but now it's time for some bite. What a terrible pun, and look at these routes. These guys are all just giving up on the fight. In the center here, we have the Brave Shaman hit by the Prey of Anathrema, hoping to keep that Magic Caster in place, take care of that leadership buff he provides, and also just remove magic from the field. In comes Terror, fully surrounded. Morga the Shadowgave, though, sticking around, using Foe Seeker to try and get out of there, but you'll see as that surround continues to just completely envelop him, his will to fight reduces lower and lower, and off in the distance, we've got a couple of units willing to fight again. These Ungor Raiders may be able to come back in and get some shots in, maybe scare that Tree Man off, maybe scare the Glade Lord up in the air once more, but unfortunately, you'll see, despite those shots, these guys are very much willing to stick and fight, and most of the Beastmen army still in the route there. We have a couple of guys, again, these Gore Herd now coming back, the Brave Shaman of Death as well coming back, maybe able to use a Spirit Leech, but magic must be very low this late in the battle. Morga the Shadowgave ultimately giving up on the fight, routing, very low on health, very low on morale. Well, he's broken, so extremely low on morale, and these guys as well just tied down by the War Dancer with the Asterai Spear, so that support in melee isn't able to come through in time, and you'll see the Glade Lord does take to the air. She's able to dive in wherever she'd like to now. She can even challenge these Ungor Raiders. This entire clump now moving in against the Gore Herd and the Brave Shaman of Death. That range support coming in, though, so a little threatening, but nothing that these guys are worried about at this point, I think. There goes Morga the Shadowgave with the Glade Lord just pouncing on him, now able to turn around and chase after these Ungor Raiders, but that's going to prove completely unnecessary as the entire Beastmen army does decide to give up on this fight, and a great Pyrrhic victory for the Wood Elves. This was an extremely intense battle that started with instant violence and went right to the end. Both commanders fought to the bitter end, but the Wood Elves were ultimately able to capitalize on the large number of weak-willed Beastmen after having isolated and picked off some very threatening combatants in the poorly managed Minotaurs with great weapons and the clumped ranged contingent. Fear and terror and excellent timing won the day for the Wood Elves. The patience was extremely important here, waiting for that perfect opportunity to show their units again, to use the Glade Lord, the Tree Man, and that rear charge from the Glade Riders at the same time. Absolutely beautiful. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's amazing highlighting such great plays from the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.